If I had to describe this movie in one word, I think the best word would be subdued. Benicio del Toro's latest movie, Reptile, which premiered on Netflix a little bit earlier this month, kind of slid under the radar. I hadn't even heard about this until my brother texted me and told me that he had heard about it. He'd heard it was pretty good. So I checked out the synopsis. I saw it had Benicio del Toro in it, so that was a plus. And then it was a cop mystery. It's just like it's a detective movie is what it is. So that was another plus. Okay, so I'm sold. So I watched it, took a few nights to go through the whole thing. I think it's, oh gosh, I don't remember how long it is. Maybe a little bit under 2 hours. I don't recall. Whatever. That's not important. And I'm watching this movie, and it was interesting because I enjoyed it, but I don't feel super enthusiastic about it. I feel a bit subdued about it. Not subdued enough to not want to talk about it with you guys, but I didn't feel as engaged with this movie as I did with, let's say, Sicario. Now, Sicario is a totally different genre of film, totally different story, completely different dynamics, so maybe it's a little unfair to compare the two. This is not an action-packed story by any means. It's a bit slow-paced, it's leisurely, it just kind of goes through and just tells you this story. The premise is Justin Timberlake's fiance is found murdered. They are realtors, and she's found murdered in a house that she was to be showing. And so Benicio del Toro is one of the detectives on the case, and he investigates stuff and is trying to find out, obviously, well, who killed this girl. And as he researches things and interviews people and detects and digs and stuff like that, he starts to find out some things that don't quite add up. And things aren't as clear-cut as maybe they would appear to be on the surface. So basically, with this movie, I felt like there was quite a bit of misdirection going on. There's definitely red herrings at play, trying to divert your attention. And so I noticed that this was definitely a tactic of the way the story was told. They would show a scene, they would break away, show something else, then come back to this other scene. And the way they were playing these particular segments together was to lead you to think a certain thing. And then by the end of that particular series of scenes or images spliced together in these quick cuts to and away, then you would find out, oh, that was a complete misdirection. It's not what I thought. And so that was interesting. And also narratively, the way this story went was different. It wasn't flashy. It would just show these very quick little scenes, like let's say of him and his wife. And then it was played by Alicia Silverstone. And I had completely forgotten that they'd played together before many, many years ago. I think it was 1997. Can't remember the name of it. Something about something baggage or whatever. I almost feel like I'd like to go back and rewatch it because they were so much younger at the time. Anyway, yeah, it would do these very short little scenes of, I don't know, him eating something, or then it would cut away to something else and some further progression would happen in the story, and then would cut back to he's talking with his wife and she's talking about her dad, and then it would move on and go on to something else pertaining to the case, and shows them going to dancing get-togethers or whatever, and shows an interaction he has with someone who seems interested in his wife. I mean, none of this is plot related. I guess it's just character sort of foundational stuff they're giving us. Oh, something else I meant to mention. I had indicated that there was a lot of misdirection and stuff like that. And some of that misdirection would come in the form of just like these, there's a scene where it shows him removing his earring. Like it's specifically focused on him removing his earring. And I thought that was supposed to mean something, and it meant absolutely nothing. Then there was also a lot of focus on an injury that he had to his hand, and that really ended up being nothing that was of any consequence at all to the story, except maybe pertaining to the stuff going on with their kitchen. But still, things like that I didn't know if they were attempts to make you think a certain thing about what was going to happen or what, but I specifically wrote it down. Why did it show him removing his earring? And then I also noted bandage suddenly missing when they'd made a big deal about it previously, this bandage on his hand because of his injured hand. So just like little things like that didn't really feel like they fit or served any particular function. They were just there, and I wasn't sure what the point of them was. If you guys know what it was, please fill me in. Okay, back to the video. And I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this film. Like, it had all the ingredients to make something super solid, and it was solid. I mean, it's not bad. It's just, it felt, I don't know, lackluster, or it's hard to describe. It felt muted, subdued. There were definitely some moments that were intriguing, and especially at the end when reveals happen and there's this very tense moment. I thought that was shot really, really well. There's a very awful thing that's happening inside the house, and outside there's a bunch of kids playing, completely oblivious to this terrible stuff that is going on. That really caught my attention. I was very much drawn up in that. Really liked how that was edited and put together. Really liked how Benicio played that particular scene. He did a really good job. Not that he didn't do a good job in the others, but he kind of felt like, I don't know, his character didn't feel super charismatic. Maybe that was just the way he was supposed to be, but I guess I expected a little bit more flair from someone like Benicio. And I don't know. I can't really say that this was a disappointment. It's just adequate. It's solid enough. It's just not something hugely impactful. There were brief moments of comedy in here. So like one of the running themes throughout the movie is that they're having their kitchen remodeled, and there have been some issues with the remodeling. And he goes to a crime scene, or he goes to somebody's house or wherever, and he sees a nice kitchen faucet. So he takes a picture of it because he thinks it looks nice and thinks it'll work really well in his kitchen. And then there's this scene where it's showing him staring pensively at a computer, and it's playing this sort of dramatic-y type of music, and then the camera pans down and the music kind of goes and it stops, and you see what he's looking at, and you're like, oh, what is it? Oh, it's a kitchen faucet he was looking at on the internet. So little tiny subtle moments of humor that I guess sort of give you an insight into his character. And I had these little moments where he's getting together with his cop buddies and they're talking about the case and figuring stuff out. I don't know, maybe it felt like it was kind of a slice of life type of story. You're just kind of dropped into a case he's working on, and okay, then you're done. And that's it. As far as any blatant cons, besides what I've already mentioned, which I guess could be perceived as a con, I'm still trying to figure out whether I feel like those things I've said about it, as far as it being subdued and just kind of laid back and sort of not 1,000% engaging to me. One of the main things that jumped out at me as something that I don't think would have flown in real life, or definitely something that wouldn't be happening or shouldn't be happening. There were several times that he would talk to his wife about specifics of the case. I didn't think detectives were allowed to do that. I didn't think they were allowed to talk about the case outside of the police. And he would get very specific about stuff with her. She's even giving him advice, and it's like she was his counsel. He would go to her for her input or whatever, like I guess bouncing things off of her and seeing what she thought about it. And that stood out to me as something that I don't think would be happening in real life, or shouldn't be happening. I don't know. Like, this was a moment. I think this was a scene where they were talking about specifics of the case. I don't know if the whole point of those things were just to bring him and her together as often as they could, given their past work. But in a lot of ways, it almost felt like her character she just didn't serve much of a purpose other than just it being Alicia Silverstone and she's playing with Benicio del Toro again. I don't know. The acting was fine. Like I said, this was solid enough. It was adequate. It did its job. But I think I expected to be a little bit more impressed with it than I fundamentally was. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. If you guys watch this, Or if you've already watched it and you thought it was just spectacular, let me know. I wouldn't mind giving this a rewatch. I'm not sure if when I saw it, I was just in a certain frame of mind and I just wasn't fully engaged with it or what. Or maybe this is just the way the film was. There was another word that came to me, actually, when I was typing up notes. I didn't write it down, but the one that came to me right before I started to film was subdued. It just felt subdued. It's passable. It's serviceable. It's decent. Outstanding? Not really. I wonder if this was based on a book. Oh well. Though I wasn't as engaged with this story as I was expecting to be, I still appreciated it enough that I wanted to let you guys know about it. It came out, like I said, a couple weeks ago, pretty new on Netflix. This was a straight to Netflix sort of deal. I don't think this had any sort of big screen appearance anywhere. You know how Netflix will do that sometimes, but I don't think they did that with this. So yeah. I don't have anything else to say. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and move on to something else that I need to record before I go on a midnight live stream with deleted scenes. So that should be interesting. Okay, you guys, that's it for now. Later.